switching on all the mics and so on that anybody needs for recording purposes. So, welcome to you all. Thank you very much for being here. We've had a number of apologies, I believe. Would you like to give those to us, Marion?
Yep. We had apologies from Councillor Curry, who's substituted by Councillor Van Dyke. We did have apologies from Councillor Maple, but he is able to join for the first half of the meeting, and Councillor Filmer.
Right, okay. Are there any declarations of interest or others, either financial or other significant interests? I don't think there's anything that I couldn't detect anything that really directly involved the companies, but so that's that. Okay, then, well, the main meeting theme this evening is business and our engagement in business on the subject of climate change. And I'd like to start with Michelle Saunders, if she would, to tell us all about the Kent Medway Healthy Workplace Award, and et cetera, et cetera. Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Doe. If it's okay, I'll share some slides with you all. It's a little bit more interesting than me just talking, so bear with me 1 second. If everyone could just give me a nod to say that they can see those okay. So thank you for having me at your meeting this afternoon. I'm Michelle Saunders. I'm a Public Health Project Officer in the Public Health team at Medway, for those who don't know me. I'm here to talk to you today about the Kent and Medway Workplace Wellbeing Award, and part of that does link in with the climate change agenda and the environment. So just for some background, it is a joint programme between KCC and Medway Council. Having started in Medway as a Medway initiative in 2018, KCC asked us to work with them, and they've now commissioned us to run the programme in the rest of Kent. And we're endorsed by the Office for Health Improvement and Disparities. They've recognised that what we're doing is along the right lines for their schools of thought on health and wellbeing in workplaces. We provide free support to businesses of all sizes and sectors, and we do that by looking at what the business needs. So it's very much led by the business, and we engage with them to give them advice, guidance, point them in the right direction, and then link in the relevant services in Medway and in wider parts of Kent when that's relevant to do so. We provide a free-to-use assessment tool if they need that. We make sure they've got the basics in place, and it's really just about supporting employers to make pledges that are right for their staff, right for the needs of their business, and help them to form a sort of health at work action plan to address what they need to address. I won't dwell on the reasons why we do it. I think the last couple of years has taught us how important mental well-being is, how important it is to look after ourselves. There are various stats here on the slide, as you can see, as to the cost to the economy. That's nationally, but obviously there's cost locally to the economy as well around health and well-being at work. Things sort of like the amount of time people spend on smoking breaks, alcohol being a factor in incidents, and just the sheer numbers of people that might be experiencing ill health. The pressures that puts on our NHS both now and in the future. So it's definitely something we want to address, helping our residents to live healthier, more productive lives, and help our local businesses to thrive. So the things that we see as benefits to a healthy workplace for the employer, obviously goes without saying, it improves the health of staff, increases productivity. The thing we've seen from our own evaluations more than anything is that a boost to morale and engagement from staff, particularly as people have come back to work from furlough in private businesses, got back to more normal ways of working since the pandemic first came about.
That's part of the healthy benefits of a healthy workplace and so on. Of course, we ought to include there the actual climate in which people work, and I wonder whether we can actually make sure that we put in something to them about the fact that climate change contributes to a healthy workplace. But Lord,
yes.
So I think we ought to just sort of have that as one of our central themes.
Yeah, no, I can certainly add that as a point, as a benefit, because there is a lot of information about how the workplace environment, ventilation, air quality impacts health and well-being. So it's definitely, thank you for your feedback. Definitely something we can add as a benefit. The programme is completely free for businesses to join. For every £1 spent, I keep meaning to change it so it's every £1 invested, because it can just be an investment in their time and efforts. Businesses do get from £2 to £32 back for those reasons above, that improvement to productivity, morale, reduction in absence, and so on. Through the programme, there's a number of bits of support, and I haven't got long, so I won't read all of this out, but there's just a flavour of the sort of things that we can get support with. One of the biggest draws is around sort of allocated spots on mental health training. That can be something that small businesses want to offer but can't afford or don't know where to get it from. So that's something they access through public health. We can help them train their workplace champions, and that will include things around climate change, working with the climate change team. A number of workshops on different health and wellbeing topics, and our members only resource area, so that sits on the back of the council website, and the members of the scheme can access different web links and resources. So the idea of it being a one-stop shop for them, they save time and effort in trying to locate the right information, and they can access the resources they need for their own health and wellbeing programme. We send out regular newsletters.
Sorry, could I just ask whether we actually, I mean, what I would like to see, obviously, and what we've all said this in the past at the climate change commit group, is that actually we'd like firms to have someone who's responsible for those changes. In other words, someone who encourages people to take an interest in climate change and in contributing and cutting down emissions, etc., you know, and the whole package really. And I just wondered whether we can actually ask them to appoint climate champion, if you like. And I think that ought to be added to the list, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly something we can do. So the workplace health champion role varies from organisation to organisation, but I'll certainly happily have a conversation with Vicky, Emma and the others after this meeting about having that role, something we can develop some training and support businesses to do. A number of businesses that I'm working with have naturally got that role. One of my businesses is a Thames Estuary Guardian. They've been recognised for their work around cutting air pollution and increasing recycling, and that would be great to use them as a case study and show businesses some of the small things they can do. So other bits of support we do sort of around the health side. So we work with obviously local stop smoking team in our public health team, health checks, encouraging people to be more physically active, use our health kiosk and support them with wellbeing days. It's all done through our awards process. So they start with the bronze award. That's really about embedding the building blocks. For us as a council, it's about making sure they're a reputable employer. They're doing the things that they should be doing in terms of health and safety, so that we don't go awarding someone that then ends up with sort of disrepute later, which would, God forbid, we wouldn't want to do that. The real crux of what we do comes about in the silver and gold awards, so encouraging them to make pledges that are right for their staff, and that's where the environment theme really comes in. And then platinum is for those employers who have done the gold award, going above and beyond their staff, perhaps influencing the community, which is again a nice theme where climate change can really come into its own with this programme, encouraging sort of wider community participation and so on. So I guess the bronze are the 10 compulsory pledges to make sure they've got the basics in place, as you can see here. And then these are the themes at silver and gold. So we're asking a business to make 15 pledges at silver, and it can be any amount of, so it can be focused in several of these themes or spread across all 8, with the environment and sustainability being one of those themes. But then the environment does also impact other things like physical activity with active travel, healthy eating in terms of cutting food waste and eating local sustainable foods, and sort of musculoskeletal health in terms of having that nice environment within the workplace, and air quality impacting on health and wellbeing also. So 15 pledges for a silver award and 30 to get a gold. They evidence they send us evidence of how they meet these pledges, and then we interview a group of their staff to verify that what happens on paper is happening in practice. So it's not just them telling us, we do a bit of digging. When we can, we go and visit them and have a look at what they're doing as well. So the pledges are made.
Okay, can I just say, I think this is very, very good, and I'm sure that environmental and sustainability pledges are really good. But what I would like to see in the mix, really, and I'm sure we all would, is I'd like to see, for example, the sort of things that they can do is on looking at how they travel to and from work. Look at the car idling, which is the scourge of this area. Where we're trying to get people leaving their engines running when they take kids to school, whatever it may be, and generally taking an interest in the environment around them, because if everybody does that, and I think we then use that study of what is already happening with one of your leading firms, then I think if you could work with Vicky on this, I'm sure she could add some things in here which actually would more directly impact upon climate change. It would be helpful if we could do that. Not
Yeah,
suggesting there's anything wrong with your you know, with the overall thing. I wouldn't dare suggest that, but I think that you know, they're all very good, but I just think that one has to be more proactive in the sense of realising that both at work and in your outside life, you yourself have got to do your bit on climate change. Like, for example, as I said, what sort of car you've got, will you travel alone to work or with somebody else, you know, all those sorts of things, car sharing and so forth. So I think we can actually, and is there a representative, as I said, for the climate change side? And then if that person can then be contacted by our climate change team here, and we can actually work with them to make sure that it does what it says on the tin.
No, definitely. We're happy to do that. I mean, just as a flavour of the sort of pledges that were made in the last financial year across Kent and Medway, understandably after the pandemic, more pledges were made around mental wellbeing and stress. We had 152 pledges made though in the environment and sustainability theme, so that I'll come on to what that includes in a minute, but that just gives you a flavour. So it is a growing area of interest amongst businesses, which we're really pleased to see, and something that we can add more relevant things in, as you say, and encourage them to make real steps in the right direction. So this is a list of some of the pledges they can make. I apologise, it's not the easiest to read. So we've got things like car sharing, encouraging them to recycle, having technology on their fleet vehicles to minimise the impact on the environment, eliminating single plastics, taking part in low carbon initiatives, improving air quality. Certainly can add things in like sort of discouraging staff from idling their cars and sort of, we're already doing some promotion around sort of better driving for business campaigns with the transport team to encourage people to go on training so they can drive better for work and even to and from work. And we've recently done some work with businesses locally offering active travel grants so that businesses can invest in some infrastructure, albeit lockers or cycle racks, to help people travel to work more actively. Even just once or twice a week would make a difference to air pollution overall. Other pledges, including things like buying and serving local produce to cut down travel and air miles or travel miles for food, composting food waste. One of our businesses has a wormery outside their canteen, so they compost all their food waste and then reuse that on an allotment that they use for staff wellbeing. There's lots of good things going on, but I do agree we do need to do more about shouting from the rooftops what these businesses are doing so that they can have some peer-to-peer learning and learn from one another about what is sort of practical and easy to achieve in the workplace. So we promote the programme in various different ways through social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, through the council communications team, through Medway Matters. Our programme is a member of the Kent Invictus Chamber of Commerce, so we're lucky to have their support and be able to speak to businesses in their membership. We also invite businesses by mail and email and attend various networking and business events such as Kent Vision Live, Construction Expo. Do introductions to joint working with Health Check, Stop Smoking, One UK and other council teams such as the Climate Change team. And part of the Platinum Award is to get businesses to sort of share their journey of health at work and that climate change work. So we do get introductions as well through word of mouth. Are there any questions from anybody from me? Any further comments?
Well, I think we've got Stuart, I think you wanted to come in.
Yeah, and Michelle, really, really well done. I mean, goodness, it's a huge task. As Richard tells us, we've got 14,000 businesses in Medway. So, and there is so. I guess my point is this: some of those businesses would have solved climate problems that the rest of us didn't even know existed. And they will have answers and have innovations and ideas that will help peers even in other industries. For me, one of the biggest things that could come from this is, which you've touched upon, but I think is really encouraging and if you, as you say, kind of rewarding them. But I think they want to anyway, is share some of these great solutions, because they might be in production, there's all sorts of things they'll be doing. You look at it and you think, my goodness, I didn't even know there was a solution to that issue. The other thing is, of course, sharing information. We briefly talked before the meeting about the paddock, and our tree expert told us about the importance of the trees on the environment in that particular little area. And I thought that was all these small things about, these businesses, with the land that they've got and everything else. There's so much information to be shared. I think, congratulations, long way to go. It's a never-ending journey, but and with so many businesses in Medway, I don't think you'll ever get to the end of it. But I think it's really worth pursuing. Thank you.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm sure you're right.
I think more examples, and the more it catches on, it senses a pyramid cell to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Sorry, did you want to come in?
Yeah, thanks very much indeed, Michelle. Really helpful presentation. A couple of quick bits, if I may. One is around the kind of breakdown between perhaps small and medium businesses and large businesses and corporates, so nationals and internationals, if you've got a rough idea of the split between those, because again, quite often they can have different methods of getting into those sorts of conversations. Secondly would be, I have never been invited to be a Medway champion. I'm aware Medway Champions is a great programme, and I wondered whether this has been promoted at one of the breakfast sessions, and if it hasn't, whether that could be added into a future agenda, because this is exactly those individuals, by the very nature they're giving their time, those are the sorts of individuals who not only would be advocates for this, but actually in many cases are involved in organisations which absolutely should be at the heart of it. So, but yeah, and the direct impact, as others have said, onto some of those wider climate issues will be front and centre. So yeah, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions from anyone or any observations? Okay, well, can I thank you very much, Michelle, for that? That was very helpful. And we'll now move on, then, in that case, to consider economic development, which I think Sean and Anne are doing together, aren't they?
The camera working?
Yeah, it is.
Oh.
Good evening. I'm going to actually hand to Sean, because Sean's done the briefing paper for this, but I'm happy to also contribute as well. Unfortunately, I do have to go about 5:40 this evening, so I apologise about that now. Okay.
That's all right.
Thanks, Sam. If you haven't read the briefing paper, I'll just give a quick overview. I haven't done a presentation, as it's not a very pictographic update. Basically, the summary is that during COVID, the economic development, it wasn't even really a team after my predecessor Wayne Saunders left. We're focused on the delivery of the business grants to the tune of 13.5 million. So since I came in October, largely my efforts have been on rebuilding the function of ED. So it's increasing our outreach and support. So for a start, we have commissioned a new business support scheme, and it does have sustainability and push towards net zero as its as a central theme. And we have the Kent Victor Chamber of Commerce delivering that, and they do actually have dedicated advisors who can advise businesses on that. Beyond that as well, we have been pushing as many of the schemes as possible, like low case, the electric van rental scheme, at business events as well. So we went to Business Vision Live and Kent Construction Expo and gave about 1,000 leaflets focusing on, which also had links via QR code to the climate change agenda on the website. So businesses at least are showing interest in that. We also have a economic development newsletter, which goes out to over 2,000 recipients, and that number's still climbing, which is great. And we always make sure at least once a month, one of the carbon neutral schemes is focused front and centre of it. We got the Medway Business Awards coming up in September, and one of the award criteria is businesses push towards net zero. On top of that, I've just begun working on a scheme with Medway's Rotary Clubs to work on a corporate social responsibility scheme for businesses. The push will be towards it being environmentally friendly for small businesses, but I'm hoping I can develop that into more of a kite mark that we can measure it against for businesses in Medway, so it can be more of a standard recognisable thing.
I think Vicky could work with you on this, actually, on her team. So I don't dare say you're already in touch with each other, but I think it'd be very good if you could work this up, because I do think that this is just where we need to be going. Also, we'll need to liaise, won't we, with development as well, as to what they can compel. In other words, what they can compel, which we're already trying to get built into procurement and so forth. But also, on top of that, what is also not necessarily compelled to do, but something which is optional and very helpful to the programme.
Exactly. That's what I'm hoping for the kite mark, because it's one of those things that businesses, if they have that showing on it, then, you know, as a prospective employee or, you know, going as a candidate, you see that kite mark and you're like, OK, that's actually a good company that cares. And that is increasingly such an issue, especially for, you know, younger staff members in that, you know, we've got in our teams. But I have been working a lot with Vicky, and I want to go back to Councillor Tranter's point about the innovation that businesses in Medway have found. So Vicky and I last week went to a business based in a dockyard, and very interesting life science business. What they do is in vitro diagnostics. That's their expertise, and they are doubling in size every year, even through COVID. But you would expect that when their focus is literally things like COVID tests and pregnancy tests. So we spoke to them about what they were doing, and we did find some of the issues businesses have. So we did ask about, for example, what moves they're making towards it. And they do want to do a way of measuring just how sustainable they are and how they can offset their carbon neutrality. But they said there are so many different ways of measuring it that they don't know which one to go for. So Vicky and I at the moment are doing some market research to find out which would be most accurate. And then that's the one that we can push. But while we were there, we did ask, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who, from pre-COVID legacy, events, meetings and everything else, has a drawer full of about 1,000 business cards. And they showed me something, and I'm amazed. I've never seen it before. They have one business card with a QR code on it. So all you do is you get your phone out and that's it. You've got their contact details. And I just think that's just something that we could take on. I mean, how many business cards do we have printed every year in Medway across the team? Instead, if we all just had one, how many trees is that saving? And that's just from talking to one business based around the corner from the office.
Okay, well, I'll just pause there and say, Richard, could you make sure that Paul Boyd gets hold of this?
Yeah, definitely. Will do, Howard. Will do.
Thank you. Sorry, continue.
Well, that was actually most of the summary. The only other thing I wanted to mention as well is that another thing Vicky, team and I are working on is towards reducing food waste. So you've got the growing Kent and Medway food partnership. We're looking to push that towards businesses. But we also used our Business Vision sponsorship of the breakfast to highlight what the University of Greenwich are doing with their innovative food hub. And they are looking at reducing food waste. So the sort of byproducts, sometimes in Tesco, they have the ugly fruit. It's processing that down into more usable, recyclable food so that nothing gets wasted. And that's like the foremost centre in the country, and it is based right here in Medway.
It's very interesting, isn't it? Yeah. All right. We'll probably have to be able to do a feature on that at some point for Medway Matters.
Very nice.
Put them in touch.
So we put that as an action that ought to go to communications. Good. Okay. Anne, did you want to add anything before I throw it open?
No, Councillor, I think Sean's made a really great summary there in terms of the progress so far. But obviously, except to say, we are open to develop further initiatives. And if we were able to obviously have some financial incentives to offer to businesses, because often that is a barrier for businesses getting involved. If we were able to secure future funding, then of course we could develop a lot more initiatives to that end.
Okay, thank you. Right, Vince.
Thanks, Howard, and thanks, Sean, for that helpful overview of the really good paper that came with the invite to today. I just wanted to explore, and you may not have the answer to this. I wanted to explore, obviously, we have, I think the Medway, whatever we're going to call it, the Medway kite mark for climate change, although that's Medway KCC, we probably don't want that. But whatever it ends up being called, is the anticipation that we will charge for that. And the reason I ask that is that, of course, we've got the very long-standing and pretty respected fair trader scheme, which is not ideal. Richard has heard me in the past say I've got some always minor concerns about it, but it's how that will sit alongside that. Because if you've got businesses in some industries paying, in some cases, several £100s to continue to be on that register, but we're giving this one away for free, potentially. I'm just trying to get an understanding. And if we are going to charge, will it be at a similar rate, or is that still in the kind of exploration stage? This will be my last contribution, so apologies all once again, and thanks for the work that continues to go on.
Well,
that one.
Sure. Got two answers to that. One still being explored, but at the moment, I mean, you saw Michelle and the team where they had their bronze, silver, gold, and platinum standards. I think if we could push towards something like that, that would be fantastic. But it's that overlap where you just mentioned about the fair trader scheme. So it's exactly as I said about businesses not knowing what to turn to for this to be it. So it's making it as local as possible and as high profile as possible. But it's not something to fight with a fair trader scheme, but it's just something unique to Medway to show that they have that corporate social responsibility towards climate change.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Vince, to highlight the fact that I think it is possible for a council to be active in so many different directions, and the business just scratch their heads and say, am I doing healthy workplace? Am I doing? But the answer is, of course, we hope they will be able to do most of them, depending on the size of business. But it seems to me that at some point, what I don't want to do is to have a whole load of different award schemes that completely confuse everybody. So I think at some point we need to sort of consider that, perhaps with communications, for example, and actually decide, we have something which has a series of awards that they get on a sort of progression basis, maybe. I don't know. And we certainly do that, I think.
If I can come back in on that quickly to have my actual very last say, I promise. I mean, I think you're right, Howard, to say actually we just, away from the climate change advisory group, probably starting maybe with an item at business regen or business support ONS to feed into something, even potentially going eventually to cabinet. I just think it's around recognising all of those things are worthwhile. They have different criteria, different, and this is the important bit, different kind of stress tests to how reliable they are, et cetera, et cetera. So I think all of them are worthwhile having, absolutely. But I think we just need to take a pause and breathe and go, actually, do we call them all one thing and have kind of subsection?
Yeah, that's what
we have 3 or 4 different schemes. There'll be pros and cons to all of that. But I think taking it away from this body, because it's far bigger than climate change from a council perspective. Have a good rest of the meeting. Thank you very much.
Okay. Well, Richard, can I put that action then? Really, I mean, you can obviously choose which of the people do it, but I think that obviously Sean need to be involved with it. But I think so will Michelle and so will other people. I think so. We need to sort of perhaps get a small group together to work on this and bring it up over a period.
Can I respond to that, Howard?
Yeah, please do, Richard. And I'll bring Stuart in after that.
Thank you very much, Howard. And I think the approach is exactly right. Whatever we want to bring forward as part of these proposals we've been discussing this evening, we just need to make sure that they're aligned with some of the wider accreditation, some of the wider schemes that we have. Make sure they're fit for purpose and make sure it's clear for business. Because I think that was the point that both you and Sean have kind of pointed to as well, is that we don't want to make it too confusing for our businesses. We want to support our businesses in flourishing and thriving, but in doing the right thing as well, don't we? So we'll certainly look at that in the round, Howard.
We also look at perhaps where it's being done elsewhere. I'm always thinking, we're not on an island, and well, we are, but I mean, we ourselves, but my boy is not an island, and I think somebody there must have taken this a little bit further, perhaps. Yeah. Anyway, we can at least look. Okay, Stuart, would you like to come in?
Thank you very much. And again, really thought-provoking presentation and information that you provided. Now, as we all know, our economy in Medway grew in the 5 years prior to COVID by 20%, which is excellent. And we're all happy about that. If business efficiency didn't improve by 20%, there's a potential underlying carbon impact on that growth. Now, no one involved here is ever going to withhold or hold back economic growth. Quite the opposite. We want to encourage it and develop it. So a business that will say, made a 20% saving but grew by 20%, are we back where we started, or is there a net gain? So I say that not because I've got an answer to it, but I think we need to be aware of our economic growth and the impact it has on the environment, simply because we're doing more, selling more, producing more, whatever it might be. That's something we've got to get smarter and smarter in order to counteract what I hope is going to be an ever-increasing economic growth for Medway. One of my questions is, what dialogue do we have with those businesses to ask them what are the kind of key infrastructure things that might help them reduce their carbon impact? For example, we all know that very high-speed telecommunications is a business efficiency, thing that will help some businesses, reduce travel and so on and so forth. I don't know what those things are, but what should we, and others be doing to help Medway businesses, which are 90% small businesses, to improve their efficiency? Are we getting that information back from them so that feeds back through all the various channels that we input into to help them achieve? Because we're going to be pushing them for growth, but we also are pushing them to reduce carbon. This is a huge, huge challenge, I think, that we face.
Well, I think that's perfectly true. Yes, go on.
Do you want to take that, Sean, or shall I take it?
Oh, I don't. Richard put his hand up.
Oh, sorry.
Go on, Anne.
Shall I kick off, Chairman? So thanks for that question, Stuart. You're right. That's a kind of fundamental challenge for us here. And that partly comes back to the work that Sean alluded to, which is about supporting our businesses with the right kind of measures around. So what are those metrics they need to be considering about reducing their carbon footprint? And what are the kind of systems that they need to be adopting to help them in that work? And it's partly trying to navigate through that to support our businesses in doing the right thing. And that's the work that Sean was talking, that he referred to, that he and Vicky have been looking at, following on from that feedback that we've had from businesses. But Sean, you might want to exemplify that point.
No, I think it's exactly that. It's how do you measure it? If the economy grew by 20%, but if productivity didn't increase by 20% as well, then it's just more consumption, it could seem like. But I think as well, we've got Medway leading the way on it. So, for example, the potential buildings at IPM, they're going to be BREEAM excellent, which means they're as environmentally sustainable as possible, designed into it. And that would be the sort of space where businesses would grow into. So if it could lead the way and set by example, then it would reduce that carbon footprint overall, even though these businesses are the ones that we are hoping will grow and grow and grow.
Okay, thank you.
So I think by encouragement, an example, rather than at the moment, I think, because our business world actually is in a very tender place at the moment.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And by the way, none of what I'm saying is trying to criticize anything. I'm just trying to flag something we've got to be aware of. So, for example, if I go back to my telecoms example, it could result in discussion with our, City Fibre friends, or with Openreach or other providers of networks to give them feedback to help them program upgrades to networks appropriately. And similarly, they might be able to tell us, what is available, what's coming along, so that we can feed it back to businesses. I just think we've really got to get, I'm both happy and concerned about our fantastic economic growth, because I think it increases the environmental challenge for us, and we've got to get smarter and smarter. And I'll be looking for cleverer ways of doing that. I haven't got the answers. I should go and think about it. But I'm just going to leave it out there for now, because I'm not expecting anyone to come back with some clever thing. But I just wanted you to understand where I'm coming from with that. Thank you.
I think that's quite clear. I think it very much aligns with the work Sean's doing, actually. Anyway, thank you for that. Is there any other comment at all or questions on this? Well, thank you both very much for the presentation. I know, Anne, you've got to quietly depart us, but thank you very much for the work you're doing in this. It really is appreciated, and it's helping us to get much more the pace of dealing with business, which I think is what we said we would do this year, and we are doing. Okay, can we move on then, please, to business case studies, which Katie, I think, is going to lead on.
I don't believe that's me. I was going to be doing kind of our summer events program. I'm not sure if someone else is covering case studies.
I had it down for you as well, Katie.
Oh. My apologies on that one.
We haven't, if we haven't got any, let's not be silly about this. If we haven't got any business case studies here, I think it would be very useful, because I know we're at an early stage, that when we have our next meeting, because it's very quite, we actually present a couple of business cases. You have, I think, already seen small businesses at work doing this, but I think things like, for example, the example that was quoted about Thames, you know, I think those are the sort of things we ought to actually just find out what they're doing as an exemplar, and we know whether we've then got something as a model that we may wish to adopt. What do you think, Richard?
Yeah, absolutely, Howard. And if I could add to that, because we have worked quite successfully with a number of businesses, but we will be able to bring those case studies forward just to give an insight into some of the things that businesses are doing. And it plays back into your point, Howard, around encouraging others and playing into that, the point the members raised earlier as well, around if you can see that such and such a business is doing X, Y, and Z, then actually that's something that we could apply to our own business as well. So I think they would be pretty powerful. So as you suggest, Hal, we'll bring that forward to a future meeting, because I think
what would be helpful then if we bring that forward to our meeting, our next meeting, and also make sure that when we do, we've looked at it from the point of view of what we're doing now and what we can learn from it. Okay. So, Kate, don't worry about that one. But now we're going to. I'm determined to hear from you all about the summer events program.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Doe. Good evening, everyone. Sorry about that. I'll just share my screen quickly, and hopefully talking about what we've been doing and what we will do. We'll make up. Let me know when that's kind of up for everyone.
Yeah.
Perfect. So we have been doing a lot for events, and we have a kind of more events coming up. So recently we've attended the Gaia at the Rochester Cathedral, and we were there across 3 days, and it was really lovely to spend the day underneath Gaia, and we spoke to many people. Specifically, a lot of schools came in, which was lovely, and some scout groups. So we stayed one evening for a later evening to interact with the scout groups. Sorry. And that was lovely. We've also attended Armed Forces Day recently, which was a really fantastic day, very busy, and we spoke to around 300 people. And then just this weekend, we were at the Love Chatham Carnival, which we spoke to around 130 people. And we found that we've now got some sustainable giveaways, and we found our engagement has increased massively now that people see that we have some really nice kind of tote bags, some bamboo cutlery kits, and some seed sticks and kind of other items like that have people coming over to talk to us. And we use these materials to kind of talk about things that they can be doing in their own lives, as well as indicating that we've got our climate change action plan, telling them where to find it, and just having a general chat about climate change. We have also been engaging with schools recently. So I visited the Thames View Primary School to do our second climate classroom with them on the 29th of June, where we worked with a year one group to look at kind of how they could be responding to climate change, ideas for what they're doing at their school. And they shared some of the things they're already doing, which is really lovely. So every class has a pledge that they do, ways that they are going to be kind of reducing their impact on the climate. And they shared that they have, each class has their own kind of eco champion who is in charge of their waste bin, their food waste bin. And every time they go out for break, that champion grabs the food waste bin, brings it out so that everyone can throw away kind of like their apple cores and their snacks into the food waste bin at the end of break. And then I've also visited Brompton Westbrook Primary School.
I was going to say, can we actually start to use this as an exemplar and sell this kind of model to other schools?
Yes.
I'd very much like to do.
Yes, definitely. And I'll touch upon our schools network in just a moment. So we also visited the Brompton Westbrook Primary School Eco Committee, who did the same. It was a kind of, I shared what we're doing at the council, and they got to ask some really incredible questions I had from young people about what we're doing and what we should be doing. And then they shared what they were doing with me, including I got to have a tour of their kind of outdoor classroom and their forest school, where they had these kind of upcycled planters. And the kind of image of that kind of shelter is a quiet reading space for the children, which I thought was lovely. And we've also now had our first schools network meeting. We've had about 10 schools interested in that, with 5 coming along to the first meeting, where they said they would be really keen to kind of, they felt that the people at the meeting were the ones who were already doing a lot. So it's making sure that we share what they do. So kind of gathering those case studies, sharing them to other schools who are maybe a bit confused or a bit worried about kind of the price of changing to be more sustainable, and kind of sharing those top tips and best practices between schools.
Use that in our, sorry, could we use that on our page in Medway Matters? Feature that.
Yeah.
I think it's a good way to sell it as it goes to everybody.
Yes, we can definitely make a note of that. So that schools network, we're now looking to have a meeting every term, and we spoke to schools and they said the second week of term was better for them. So we're looking at getting those set up for the whole year, so that once we start with the new year, we're ready to kind of go with that network and be supporting each other. So it would be schools supporting schools as well as us supporting them to make those changes. And with more and more coming along, that should hopefully get more schools sort of making those changes.
Excellent.
And then kind of going forward, so we've got some future events that the climate response team will be attending. So we're at the Medway Gaming and Creative Festival this weekend. We'll be going
urge everybody to attend. It should be
very
very interesting.
I'm very excited.
Fascinating last year, so make sure you've put that in your diaries if you haven't got it in already.
And if you do go, come and find us and talk to us about climate change. And we're very lucky that the youth service has lent us their VR headsets, so we can be getting people kind of like seeing the impact on the climate and kind of engaging in a way that they don't usually get to. We'll be at the Rainham Community Day on the 4th of August, the Family Fun Day in Chatham on the 12th of August, and we'll be going to Wild About Capstone in September. So these are the events that we are kind of like officially scheduled to go to, but we are looking at more. But I've only included the ones that we are officially going to. And if you know of any events, I'm always happy to hear about them and try and schedule us in to attend. And then we're also looking at hosting a Great Big Green Week. This is in the 24th September to the 2nd of October. And that will be a week-long kind of list of activities. And we're hoping to be working with the community, kind of sharing the activities they're doing, as well as hosting our own. So we'll be sharing more about that as that develops. But again, anyone has any ideas about activities they'd like to see in the Great Big Green Week, please do send them along to me. I would love to hear about them.
I think we have what we did very well, I think, with our feature on the climate change conference in Glasgow, you know, where we actually sort of measured the miles and everybody contributed so much. If we can find something like that, which is, you know, we can actually register so everybody feels they're making a contribution to a total, I think it'd be very helpful.
Yeah, definitely. I can have a look into that. So that was our walk to COP26. Yes, that one, that's a great walk to school initiative we did, and hoping again to do that again in October, so we can link it to this week as well. That's a very good idea. So on to our climate newsletter. So I think last time I spoke to you, I said that we were nearly 1,000. I was hoping to hit it. So we've now got over 1,170 subscribers. And something we started trialing at the Love Chatham Carnival was saying to people that if you sign up to our newsletter, you'll get a free bamboo cutlery kit. And that worked really well. So of the about 130 people we spoke to, we got 74 additional signups. So that was really good. So that's something we'll consider, we'll keep on doing, is sort of kind of having that conversation, having a bit of an incentive to sign up to our newsletter. So here's just sort of what you can see in our newsletter. So we share about the Sustainable Warmth scheme. Any other grants that come up, we'll always include in our newsletter. We recently had our refit update go out in our June newsletter, and our Green School Awards. We shared that to kind of let people know that that was open and they should submit. And in our last newsletter, our June newsletter, we had a 63% engagement rate, which I'm told is very good.
Excellent.
And again, Medway Matters. So we are having a very good presence in the Medway Matters, always having a 2-page spread. And we're just actually planning our next Medway Matters at the moment. So we take all the comments that we've spoken already about Medway Matters today. I'll take that away and kind of look at putting that into our latest one. But we're hoping to cover our refreshed action plan in the next Medway Matters that I think comes out around September time. So we'll be still having our 2-page spread in our Medway Matters. And then finally, so kind of where we're going next. So we've got the Medway Environmental Action Network. So that's the community network we've spoken about before. They're still getting themselves set up. There's a really enthusiastic group of people who are really keen to lead on it. We're just waiting for them to kind of get together, have a terms of reference and their ethos statement, and they're looking to plan their official first Medway Environmental Action Network meeting in September. So we'll report back more about that once the first kind of official meeting has taken place, because previous meetings have been more kind of like a planning idea bounce around meetings. We need to organise our Great Big Green Week, so that's going to be a really big task coming up over the next couple of months, because we are hoping to make it like a full-on week of events. So again, any ideas, please send them my way. And then we
mentioned the Medway Mile. I think it'd be very good if we're represented there. You've got thousands of people there. It'd be really good if we can get a stall there and engage. So a good opportunity.
I'll look into that. Thank you. Yes, and then we're going to learn from our climate change action plan survey. So we released this with our refreshed action plan, and it closed on the 1st of July. So we're still kind of gathering the data on that. But we had 71 respondents, which we're very pleased with. And from like an initial look at the data, over half of the respondents, so about 59%, are aware that that Medway Council has a climate change action plan. So this has increased from when we previously did our citizens surveys. So that's good, but we'll be kind of looking more into those results. And we are happy to circulate a report once we have them. But I think that is all for me in our update. So any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Sure. Hello, Stuart.
Oh, so sorry. I didn't catch you calling me, Chairman. Sorry, I've always got something to say, haven't I? But first of all, thank you again for that. I've got 3 sort of question areas, all quite straightforward, I think. One is, I mean, on the Medway, our health people like Scott Elliott have done some fabulous work, and we came up with the branding Medway Go, which is shared all over the place, and I think that's brilliant. Can you tell me, with the lovely branding that you've got for Medway Climate, how is that branding shared with other organisations, businesses, schools, or else? Is it in any way? Is there another opportunity? I'd love to see it, going into a school, for argument's sake, where they're engaged with what we're doing, to see that brand on the wall, and then when they see you somewhere, they think, oh, we're at one of your events, they'll connect. And you see where I'm going with that? Tell me a little bit about your thoughts on the branding. You might already be doing all of that, and and I see Cecilia's put her hand up. She'll know all about that. Related to that is, which I'll be happily pick up offline. I'm a great believer in professional social media conversations, and Celia is the world's expert on this, an expert. But I think the reason I'm so enthusiastic, because it's a very low carbon, low cost, effective means of communicating with people, where I think we create conversations and not just impart information. And I think we can engage more and more people with that, and using the lovely brand that you've got. I think there are lots of opportunities to cost effectively increase that. Shall I pause for a moment, because then I have a slightly different question, if I may, if there's any comment on that. I'm happy to discuss that outside the meeting. I've got no end of ideas on it, but I don't want to take everyone's time up at the moment.
Well, let's have our world-class experts view on it.
No pressure there then. I mean, on the subject of branding, it's a really good question, Stuart, actually, because I mean, we've developed that for sort of the work that we're doing, and thank you for the compliments. And I do, I completely agree. I think it looks absolutely fantastic and really kind of fresh and modern, and we've developed it to put on the to link it to the work that we're doing. I don't think it means that others can't use it at all. I think that we just need to I just want to give it a little bit more thought in terms of just making sure that we're sort of comfortable that, if other people are using it, they're using it in the right way. We'd have to put brand guidelines around it, and also that Yeah, so that it's being used properly. That's always my slight concern, that, because
100%.
obviously, we've got our very, we're very proud of our, and I suppose our brand reputation, and and linking it to the work that we're doing. So it's just sort of thinking about how others can use it. So, but I mean, some kind of a toolkit, and I think would be ideal, because it's a little bit like the Medway Place branding. I mean, the more people that sort of can use it, then that's what we like. So, yeah, really happy to take that point away and come back to you on how we can do it. Social media, I wouldn't call myself a world-class expert, although probably many of the younger members of my team probably are. I think Katie's doing a really great job. I mean, we obviously have the climate change social media channels, and I think that's one thing that I really like to sort of champion. And I think excuse me, still got a bit of COVID cough, sort of residual, I'm sorry, but the what I think I'd like to sort of look at how we can sort of use the climate change social media channels that we have got to sort of develop those conversations. We do some stuff on our corporate channels, but sometimes, as you're probably aware, our corporate channels also tend to be quite controversial. We tend to sort of end up with sort of, and we don't want to sort of end up with any sort of slanging debate. So, but I think sort of something that we can sort of open up and have more conversations with, and dedicated conversations through the climate change channel, I think would be ideal. Actually, it would be really great. But what we'll do is we'll sort of direct people from the corporate channels across to our climate change ones, and do that there. And I think also then they'll be talking with the experts on climate change there as well.
Actually, I did see about a comment that I think that I saw. Actually, I'm getting embarrassed now, but I saw Katie and Vicky in action on obviously on Armed Forces Day, and honestly, it was quite impressive, the standard dialogue that was going on. And I think that it wasn't just freebies, because we ran out, but even so, they're still coming and still wanting to talk about it. So I think it's quite useful. The other thing is that we might, I think, if we're taking that idea a bit further, something we might look at is actually, when we get, in order to make sure we get virtually every school participating, we may be able to do something like have a small plaque or something like that that says that they're climate champions, or something of that sort. I don't know. I'm in the hands of Celia and Katie on this as to what they think would be the best way of doing that. But I can't think that would set us back a mint, and it would be very good, to have them on board.
Yeah, and I think that I love that idea of a climate champion. I have to say, I think that would be a fantastic idea.
Okay, we'll work that out.
Yeah, so thank you very much for that. If you'd like to, I'd happily have a telephone conversation or whatever you want to do about this, because I've got lots of ideas and so on, and I don't really want to take more meeting time up now. But I'm only just offering it to you. It's your decision on that. The other thing, actually, that I was briefly going to mention, the Armed Forces Day, I was one of those that visited the stand. Thank you very much. It was very good, and indeed our health teams. And I just wanted to bring together two related issues here. I was going to bring it up later, but it's probably a good point to do it. The refill project, which is very important to us for health reasons as well as environmental reasons. When in my travels around, I see some other boroughs, some of their places of contact, whether visitor centres or hubs or whatever their equivalent is and so on, have a refill sticker on council-owned properties and so on. And I don't fully understand why we haven't investigated each of our places. I mean, within my ward, there's the visitor centre, or there's the community hub. There's obviously one in Stroud, one in Chatham. There are libraries and other places around it. Which ones are most suitable, I don't know, in terms of somebody being able to go in there and fill up their water bottle or whatever it is quite easily. I had those discussions at that event. Everybody seemed warm to it, and I didn't know how we take that forward. It's obviously be something under Adrian Goldwyn's area as well for the buildings and what have you. Don't know the ins and outs of it. I realise there's regulations and things to overcome. There will be some costs, but
okay, I will get the climate change team to think about this, and
thank you.
We'll see where we take that idea, and obviously talk to Celia. Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else you want to raise?
No, that was it. I just wanted to park those ideas with you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Katie. That's very good that we're getting involved with so heavily with this, and I do thank you personally for the work you've done on it. I think it's been very good, and you know, having seen it firsthand. In fact, I did try to chat to you at Armed Forces Day. I couldn't get anywhere near her. She was absolutely surrounded with all these people, but it was absolutely wonderful. So well done. Anyway, now we come on to the, I'm afraid, the perhaps less interesting bits, because they are procedural, but nevertheless. First thing is the update on the action plan. You'll see there that we have got a kind of a summary of where we are. I won't run through it in detail, but you have got there a series of headings, and under the priorities of the progress that we've made in the current quarter. Though it's been a very short quarter this time. And I don't know if anybody has any matters they'd like to raise on that. I'm assuming that you've all read that and that you're aware of it. And then the next, if that's not nothing there, the next thing is that we got the minutes of the 26th of May meeting, last meeting, and I assume you accept those as a correct record. No one's actually objected to them, but there is the actions arising from that meeting, which there are quite a lot of actions there from those in previous meetings. Some of them are completed and will come off there. But if anybody, you don't have to give me the answer this evening, but if anybody does have any actions that they think have been misinterpreted or been missed out, or feel that we're not doing enough as we might do, as it were, then fine. Let's listen to that. And I know we've already had some comments from the Labour group, which are I think they've already had the answers to those. But if anybody wants to raise anything now, please do. But otherwise, I'll leave you to feedback to the team as and when. Okay. Where are we? Let's have a look. I think really that almost brings us to the end of the meeting. We've I think dealt with the action plan and so on. So I don't think there's really anything else that we need to cover, unless, except of course, any other business. If anybody has any urgent items of any other business, I'm happy to listen to those.
And you've got Zoe indicated.
Right. Okay, yeah. Zoe, would you like to come in?
Yes, I wasn't quite sure where to come in with this, but I was looking at the agenda item 5, and particularly the emission reduction pathways to 2050. And my question really is, what is the balance between and the scope in relation, well, the balance between encouragement and enforcement in terms of emissions? I think Councillor Tranter was at the paddock where I was this morning, and the amount of emissions coming from the buses there was absolutely horrendous. And we know that, although we're trying to achieve these reductions within a period of time, there's an immediate issue for people's health, and we know the child that died in London recently. I don't know what the scope is for enforcement in terms of emissions and how that works, but I wonder whether there is a balance between the two, or whether we're largely working on the basis of encouragement to reduce emissions, because I think we have a big problem in Medway that needs to be addressed.
Well, I do agree that I think one of the problems we've got actually now is the supply of electric vehicles, but and I agree with you particularly about buses. I think that they do appear to be extremely dirty items, but I think the answer is that we have already spoken to Arriva, and we've actually trialled one electric bus with ADS, I think it is, and AJS, and they are, I think, certainly looking at it as replacements come in, which will presumably be long before the 2035. As regards the actual level of emissions, there are, of course, legal levels of emission, and I'm afraid I don't have those in front of me. If anybody does have, by all means, do tell us. But I wonder, Richard, whether you could get the environment team to just let Zoe know what those areas are. They measured emissions and falling foul of that. there are penalties, but it's a pretty wide. Unfortunately, the legislation is pretty wide in the sense that I don't think that it's as draconian as one would like to see it in some ways.
Yeah. So, Howard, if I can just a brief response back to Zoe's question as well, because Howard, you're exactly right. There's legislation in terms of emissions. There's also our air quality management action plan areas as well, where we're specifically monitoring emission levels. We have got Lucy on the call, so Lucy may want to just give a brief commentary. But otherwise, Howard, I'm very happy that I'll ensure my guys follow up with Zoe. Zoe, it might be helpful. I know you're very interested in this particular area as well, that you might want to
Howard, I'm not sure.
any event. So happy to facilitate that if that would help. But we have got Lucy on the call, Howard.
Okay, Lucy, is there anything you can contribute to this? I'm sorry, it's off the cuff.
That's okay, Councillor Doe. I'm hoping my internet isn't too. Network doesn't seem to be great this evening. We do monitor nitrogen dioxide across Medway. We've got 4 air quality management
areas.
And getting approval for the air quality action plan on 4 Elms Hill. Within those, we do have measures to work towards in low emission buses within Medway. Unfortunately, is out of our goal slightly because obviously we've got a third party operator in Medway, but I'm sure I'm not sure whether we've got anybody who's leading on the buses on the call, but we've budgeted and that will be picking up on
well, I know we have actually.
I know from some way with the Eco Hub.
Sorry, you're not coming out very well, I'm afraid.
Can I suggest, Howard, because Lucy's signal is great.
Sure, no, sorry. I think it's better if I give a written response.
Correct. Yeah. So if we just organise that, Howard, that Lucy will follow up directly with Zoe just to answer that, but we can always circulate the kind of general.
Yes, please. I think that'd be very helpful, so we will know what we're doing. Okay. I'm sorry about that, Lucy, and sorry about that, Zoe. But communications beat us all sometimes. Right, Stuart, did you want to come back?
Just a very quick point on Zoe's point, actually, which I think she raised an interesting point about the buses. Arriva are obviously our biggest single supplier of bus services. Would it be appropriate, if we haven't already got it, to ask them what their plans are for their fleet over the next 5-10 years in terms of its impact on the environment? They might already have something that they can share with us. I realise they're a private company and we can't demand anything, but there might be things that they're happy to share.
I think we have asked for that, but I'll make sure we get that. I think that's fair enough, isn't it? Yeah. And I think the problem we've got actually is as I say, the supply of the right parts is the problem. As you know. Actually, it's quite interesting. I went to the local government conference, as you know, and I actually there saw one of the new the hydrogen buses, which are made in Northern Ireland. And although we've always sort of been a bit, I think many have been very wary of it, thinking, "My goodness, this is a potential bomb waiting to happen." But actually, it's not. They've now got containers for it. When you open the back of the bus, there's like sort of 4 containers of hydrogen, and those resist heat to quite a tremendous degree. And if that's not enough, if you reach that heat, then the whole lot discharges through the top of the bus into the atmosphere, which is not a problem for the atmosphere. So that's going to be technology that will be worth pursuing. At the moment, they're very expensive because there aren't enough of them. They haven't got the production line, if you like. But I think when they do, they offer, I think, personally, a better solution in all probability than electric buses.
Yeah, very good. And Howard, you've got Ruth wants to come in on buses as well, I think.
Right. All right, Ruth. Nice to hear from you.
Thank you, Howard. I was only going to just confirm that we are talking to the bus operators and we are working on the bus improvement plan. So all of this is being worked on and is in hand. So not to worry too much.
Well, I think we're very limited in terms of pressure, though, aren't we? Really. with the bus companies, I think.
That we can apply, yeah.
Yeah, it's not a great time for buses, unfortunately, post-pandemic. But in saying that won't stop us. There are opportunities around making improvements with public transport that we are pursuing the whole time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Ruth. You didn't want to add anything, did you, Ian? No, it's okay. That's all right. So I thought you were both on the same line, you see.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, is there any other business? Well, in that case, then, can I just close the meeting? Thank you all very much for your attendance. Our next meeting is on the 10th of November, which is, I think, will enable us to get some work done in the meantime. It's 4 months. Good. Okay, thank you very much. And
thank you. Excellent progress.
Some of our summer activities.
Great. Thank you all. Thank you, Chairman.
Bye.
See you.